Hey, this is Reed Swizer with Estero Development, coming to you today with Mike Lyons from Lyons Real Estate. Mike manages properties for us in Southwest Florida. And some of the most common questions I get when I work with you individual investors, when you're trying to fill out your portfolio, a lot of them revolve around property management. So I thought it would be a good idea to shoot a video with Mike, and that way you can get the answers right from the guy who's going to be screening your tenants, placing your tenants, and working with them throughout, their time where they're in your property. So, Mike, welcome and thank you for being here.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Thank you, Reed. Look forward to talking to you about it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I think the best place to start is just give us a quick Reader's Digest on your background, how long you've been doing it, your management philosophy. Just give us a quick idea of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Okay. Well, appreciate that. So I've done property management, real estate investing for about 18 years. So I've done it for a while. And from a property management standpoint, investment standpoint, the key, in my opinion, to a good investment is good tenants. That's like the most important part. My company's been real successful in management. And I think because we put so much emphasis on doing a crazy background check on the tenants to make sure they're good and worth it.
Right.
So that's been huge. And when it comes to my philosophy on how to do it, cash flow is key. Your profit and loss at the end of the year needs to be amazing, or it's not a good investment. And that's my goal with all the properties I manage. I plan on doing this for years to come, and have done it for a long time. And again, keeping costs down, keeping the rents to keep going up as much as we can is the key to the whole thing. And that's been my goal for years, and it's worked out really well. And one thing too, I guess another thing, it's been very successful. Communication's key. So all my clients have my cell, and that's been a difference maker in a lot of cases, because especially when you get started with a new company, you want to know what's going on. And I make that real clear to anyone that I work with. Here's my cell, call me whenever. Yeah, I got a question, don't hold back. I'd rather get it clarified than there be uncertainty. So and it's worked out great. So actually I'm one of the crazies that enjoy doing property management. So I love it.
Well, and I think probably the portfolio that you currently manage includes a lot of these types of people, but a lot of the people that, we bring to you are out of state investors. They're 500, 1,000, 1,500 miles away. And, when your investment's not in your backyard, hiring the right property manager means a lot.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And so I've got several clients, even outside the United States, Canada, some in Europe. So they're not anywhere close by. And you want, and it's not and right now with all that's going on in the world, it's hard to get places. So, property management is key, actually key to an investment, in my opinion. You can buy something, but if it's mismanaged, there goes your investment. So from far away to know it's in good hands is huge. So that's my job. And we do a good job at it. But I agree. You buy something for, a few $100,000 far away and you can't see it very often. You want good eyes on it. So that's what we do.
Yeah. For sure. Well, what I want to do is, it seems to me in every conversation that I have with investors, there's a handful of questions that come up. And I thought if we put them on video, it'll help our clients, or our future clients, or prospective clients understand, exactly what they're getting into. And they're probably going to have these same handful of questions. And so I'm just going to fire them at you. And if there's anything that I leave out that you get asked as a question a lot, go ahead and fill it in at the end.
Sure.
So I'll just run down the list here. Who are the typical renters in Southwest Florida? If you could break it down to 2 or 3 different classes of people, who are your renters, Mike?
Good question. And again, the key to the investment, in my opinion, is getting really good tenants, and tenants are key. So our threshold for tenants, or who we have for tenants, I guess better put, blue collar, hardworking individuals, and a combination of families, retirees, and blue collar is kind of a good broad way to paint the brush on what kind of tenants we have. Our area is, big on tourism, and it's an older population, a lot of retirees down here. So that's kind of a combination. So we get a lot of the employment side of our tenants is, medical, kind of government jobs, or like school teachers, that kind of thing. And that'd be a big pool of who we work with. And with that, I'll kind of focus a lot on the tenant part of it. We're talking about the pool of what types of tenants, but at the same time, all of those are very easy to verify their income, their background. We don't take anything on a cash paid employee or someone that has a note from their employer of where they work. We want pay stubs, bank statements. We verify all that. But blue collar, I mean, is a vast majority of who we will be renting to. And then another just part of it too is we have a lot of people coming down from out of state to live in our area, to get to know the area, within the intention to potentially buy someday and or rent. And just we get a combination of that too. And then probably lastly, and more of an uptick in the market we've seen with people who can work remotely. So they can work from anywhere in the United States from their house, and they'd rather be in sunny Florida, during wintertime. So we've had a lot of that as of late too coming down here. And that's changed, I'm guessing, with COVID and a lot of things, but people can work from home from wherever. And that's brought a lot of people to the market too. And actually really good paying jobs too, which has been great. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of that on the general real estate side as well. People that maybe lived in a climate that's not, super conducive to an outdoor lifestyle, and now they can work from home. And, why not work from home where you can go fishing or golfing or boating 365 days out of the year?
We have very few days where we're scraping snow out of the front yard down here. So yeah, it's good. No, it's
That's
beautiful.
for sure.
That's right.
That's for sure. That's why I moved here. All right. So the next question: how long do they typically stay? Whether it be a new construction house or maybe an older home that you're renting out. Do you have some at least anecdotal numbers on that?
Good question. So across the board, to generalize it, because obviously you've got all types of tenants and their lives are going different directions, and some want to buy at some point, but the vast majority, turnover is very low. Our market currently, demand for rentals is extremely high. It's always high though. There's always an abundance of tenants, which has an impact on turnover, meaning it's hard to find a place for a lot of these guys. So trying to move to go to another place, one, good luck in the current market that we're in. And from a turnover standpoint, we're around about 95, 96% of our tenants are renewing, which is a huge number. But that's kind of maintained it even prior to some of the market trends we've seen. 90+% were renewing. If not, not even more than that to a certain extent. So we're probably 95, 96, 97% on renewal, and the turnover is low, real low. And there's a bunch of factors. One being demand so high, it's hard to find another place if you do want to move.
Sure.
The other thing too is, you get a taste of Florida in February and March, and it's beautiful, and it's where people want to retire. They're not going anywhere. So, I've really, knock on wood, experienced some really low turnover. And to follow up with that, to answer that question, I would say when there is turnover, finding a new tenant is also easy, but not just any tenant, obviously one that qualifies. So what we'll do, if it goes along with the question, to help explain it a little better, we reach out 2 months prior to someone's lease is up on whether or not they're going to renew. The goal is always to have them renew. We don't want turnover. Turnover is cost to the owner, and that's what we don't want to. We want to avoid that. But we try to be proactive in finding out whether or not they're going to, and if they are going to, re-renting the property out is easy. We go way in advance and start showing it, and within a few weeks of there being a vacancy, we've got a new tenant. So while vacancies, they're few and far between, they're easy to fill if there is one. So it's kind of twofold to answer that question. I mean, it's huge. Yeah,
that led me right into what my next question was. So what you're saying is very rarely do you have a significant gap between tenants. It's just a matter of getting the property cleaned out to get the new person in there, little touch-up paint or whatever needs to be done.
Correct. And especially with your guys' product, which is fantastic, and a builder's product. You guys have all the paint codes, you have anything involved with the property already. So it makes turnover even that much easier if and when that does happen, because it's all there. So cleaning it up is nothing. And compared to a property, other investors that bought a house built in the 80s, they don't know what the paint is. They got to redo everything. And it's just a different asset class. So your product makes it very easy for turnover to be a inexpensive short-term thing. If it goes beyond 3 or 4 weeks on vacancy, that's unacceptable and just really doesn't happen because we're proactive at it. So.
Okay, good. We're in an area or an era where, we did have an eviction moratorium, which is coming to an end now, but who knows, they could start it back up. We don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
But in this price range of homes, in that, call it $1,600 to $2,000 a month homes, What kind of issues did you have throughout COVID with people not paying their rent in this asset class?
Okay. In the asset class that we're talking about, zero problems. I had none. And this is a portfolio of several hundred units that my company handles. We had none with the asset class you guys are dealing with. To give, I mean, maybe to ease someone's worries about that, with a COVID eviction moratorium, there's so much out there still financially. If someone had a legitimate issue to get financial assistance on any asset class and or income bracket, you have no problem getting help. So we had zero issues, knock on wood. It was great. But if there was an issue with anybody, not even referring to properties like yours, maybe a little lower income properties, there's so much help out there that it wasn't a problem. I had 3 issues during COVID. It was all tenants that I inherited that I didn't place through my company. And we handled it and moved on. It was fine. But when the asset class you guys are selling or they're dealing with, I had no problems whatsoever, zero. You've got a brand new property. It's in demand. There's a huge demand for rent. So you can be somewhat selective on getting really qualified tenants. They pay the rent. I mean, I didn't have any issues at all, and don't foresee any at all.
Okay, good. Now, obviously you've been doing this 18 years. You've been through some evictions here in Florida. Talk a little bit if in that, 0.01% chance we do have an issue with a tenant and we do need to get rid of them. Talk to me a little bit about the process, how long it takes, and what kind of expense would be involved.
Cool. Good question. So currently, even with the courts right now, with all that went on with COVID, with a lot being closed down, it slowed down the process. But it's about 4 weeks. 4 weeks from the time we issue paperwork to the courthouse until it's finalized. So
I think people from California and New York would want to kiss you right now.
Oh yeah, you're looking at 8 months up there. I actually spoke to a guy who had an investment in New York. I think it was either New York or New Jersey, and a year later, he's still trying to get someone out. So it's insane. But locally, we've been lucky, and we've had laws in place for a long time that have been not necessarily super landlord friendly, but way more landlord friendly than anywhere else in the United States, in my opinion. There's a lot of states where it's hard to get someone out if they're not paying. But on our end, here locally, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks if they fight it, which there's such a low percentage to actually even attempted fighting it. Because if you're going through the process of evicting, it's because they need to be evicted because they're doing something wrong. So it's hard for them to fight it because it's like, what are you going to fight? You haven't paid, whatever the issue might be.
No pay, no stay.
Exactly. It's pretty simple. So, and really, our judges too, the few that I've dealt with throughout the years of doing it, if you level with them, hey, here's where we're at, we're trying to get payment. If they can pay it, we'd love to keep them, but they can't. So, what are we gonna do? They do a good job and they get people out. So the court costs to do that are about $500 to $600. If it gets drug out with the tenant really fighting it, I've seen that dollar amount go to like $800. Because there's more court stuff involved, but even then, that's pretty cheap eviction. I've heard of thousands of dollars
nationally. Yeah. I've heard some real horror stories from some friends from other states. Talk about rental demand. What do you see for rental demand? I mean, we can't project out too far because none of us own a crystal ball. But let's call it the next 12, 18, 24 months. What do you see happening?
Okay. Well, the demand in our area throughout all the years that I've done this there's always been good demand. And I've never had a problem getting a tenant in a place. Right now, the demand is unbelievable. I think a lot of the factors that play in are other states being closed down to a certain extent, a lot of restrictions, and Florida, you're not restricted. So I think a lot of people are coming to our area because of that. And again, I don't know how long that's going to last, but the other thing I'll go back to, which we discussed earlier, in March, I'm in shorts and beautiful weather and on a boat. So that's not going to change. And right. that drives our market and has for years and years with retirees and people want to be in our area. So the weather alone, I foresee over the next couple of years, demand, if anything, I think increasing. I've only seen it increase over the last year, and there's always been a huge demand, but it just keeps going and going and going. And the impact that other states have had on how they've conducted closing stuff down and us opening pretty quick after the COVID stuff, there's huge demand. And the added factor of working remotely is only adding to that. We're getting more and more people coming in to work here. Sure. So I don't see it slow down anytime soon. But even then, if it were to slow down and go back to quote unquote normal, there's still never a shortage of tenants. I've never had a shortage of tenants where I can't find someone to rent a property.
Even in the lean years, you know,
The
when
leanest
things were
years.
going crazy.
The leanest years. Now, do you make some price reductions? Possibly at that point, maybe, but there's no shortage of demand right now. There's so much demand when it comes to rental property. Sometimes we put marketing up and I want to throw my phone out the window because it won't stop ringing. So
Well, I've got your website up on my other screen here, off to my right, and I looked at your vacant property list, and there wasn't anything on it. So I think that kind of might say something right there.
I answered the question. You know what? And so we used to update that website, but we spent so much time updating it because it changed so quickly that we're like, all right, we'll just put the properties out there, and it goes so fast. And what we've done too to avoid both, to answer the demand question, and also going back to the vacancy a little bit. When you have a pretty big pool and have done it for so long, we get inquiries about rentals constantly just through the pool of people that we work with now. So that's been a huge help. There's times where we don't even have to market it too much, or we'll market one property that's close by a few others, and the demand for that one, we'll just try to push them out to other properties, and we can rent it that way too. So to answer your question, I see demand over the next 1 to 2 years, if not 3 years, continuing. If anything, if it maintains at this, I wouldn't be surprised. There's nothing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to build more houses. Like, is what it's gonna come down to.
Yeah, and if you drive the areas that where you guys are building, there's a lot of vacant land, a lot of building that could be done still. So I think the timing on your buyers right now is fantastic because you're buying it before a lot more building is still going to be done. Again, the months that bring down so many people. Here's the thing too. Right now, a lot of people outside the United States can't get here due to restrictions. That will change at some point. That's only going to increase the demand. So, I mean,
you've got Canadians and Europeans who love Southwest Florida, and they can't go anywhere right now. What's going to happen when they can leave their country and house and what have you?
Correct. So the demand we have now is only based on the United States, basically, and that's only going to increase once that opens up. So we've got a good few years of awesome demand and really good tenants too. A lot of these, they're coming in, and this is just one example. I don't know if I should share the story, but today I had a tenant on a property. Their rent was almost $4,000 a month, and they're paying a year in advance, $5,000 deposit. Now this is a pretty high end property, but still, I was just shocked. I was like, who does that?
Well, it just goes to show you there's demand on the low end, the mid, which is kind of where we're at, and then the high end properties as well. I placed a tenant, and I don't do the actual management. I just kind of found a tenant and helped them find a house. And they paid $5,500 a month. They've got a custom house being built, $2.5 million house, and they need a place for 2 years because a custom house takes 2 years to build right now.
Correct.
And, placed a tenant on a $5,500 a month rent for 2 years. So it's out there.
Yep, correct. And so the demand, everything's pointing to it continuing, and it's insane right now. And again, we don't have a lot of the other foreign markets that would usually be in our market. They're not here because of COVID. So
sure. Now we basically build in 3 different counties: Lee, Charlotte, and Sarasota right now. Do you see differences in demand county by county?
No. I say no. I see huge demand in all 3. And to point someone in any direction, all 3 counties are, again, they're they kind of all lined up. Go down the line there from Sarasota down, and I see huge demand in all 3. All the same factors we just discussed apply, where there's huge demand, and we haven't even seen the half of it yet with other markets not opened up yet. So I wouldn't push anyone in any other direction. Great in Lee County, great in Charlotte, and great in Sarasota County, and they're similar when it comes to location on Florida on the West Coast. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in all those three markets, and tons of retirees coming to this area. And the retiree portion of that hasn't changed throughout the years. That's always been a huge driver in our area, but it's being driven even more so by the individuals that can work from home. That's another part of the market. So all those 3 markets, I'd be hard for me to say go to. They're all good. They're good areas, and I know them all really well. So huge demand all across the board.
Let's get into a little bit of your fees. I know that you've kind of worked out a special program for the new construction properties that we do. Let's talk a little bit about what you charge for fees, and then Talk about like maintenance fees and what if the doorknob breaks, what is Lions Real Estate charging to line up the handyman? And, just let's get into your fee structure, because I know that's a question that I get and I'm sure you get.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. So, which is important. So the fees that we charge, let me talk about the maintenance part of it first. A lot of companies, and this is something that I'd highly recommend an investor ask their management company, whoever they go with, they should not be, in my opinion, they should not be being charged a percentage above and beyond what the cost would be to fix something on their property. And a lot of companies do that. I don't agree with that. I think, you're charged to manage someone's assets at the best cost possible, keep their costs down so that their P&L at the end of the year looks as good as possible, the cash flow is as good as possible. So if a contractor is $100 to go to property to do work, that legitimate work that needs to be done, whatever their invoice is what the owner pays. I don't charge in addition to that some kind of percentage. But a lot of companies do. And
yeah, I've seen as much as like 15, 20%. They'll bump on top of the contractor's bill.
And I think that's your job as a management company, is to keep the costs down, not increase them. It's kind of like kicking someone when they're down. So you have an expense at your property and I'm going to charge you to fix it. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Your job is to manage the asset, keep the costs down. And that's our goal. Now, with your guys' portfolio and in your company, we typically charge higher fees, but for your group and the asset class you're working in, we charge 5% a monthly management fee on the rents collected. And our other fee is a half month's rent to place the tenant. Now, I don't charge that upon them signing a management agreement and getting with my company. When we line up a tenant who's qualified and gone through the very vigorous background checks that we do to qualify someone, it's basically they're applying for a mortgage when they apply for rental property. But once they qualify, they'll pay the security deposit and the first month's rent, and we'll take half of that, send the balance to the owner, and then going forward, each month, ACH the money into their account electronically. So,
Okay.
And those are the fees. I mean, that's about it. And when it comes to the fee schedule, a lot of companies will kind of nickel and dime on a charge to post a notice on the door, or a charge to ACH the money to you, or a charge for this and that. That's all. I don't do that. You got the two fees. That's what I do.
What about renewals? When you renew the lease, is there a charge on renewals?
So on renewal fees, we charge $100 to do a renewal fee annually, regardless of whether or not it's $2,000 a month in rent. It's $100 fee to do the renewal fee, and that's it. So
okay. That's really fair. And I also noticed on your website, you've got portals for both the tenants and the owners. They can log into and kind of see what's going on, or if the tenant has a repair request, do they go through the portal? Is that how all that works?
Correct. Yep. So the owner will have the ability to log into the website, have their login, see all their statements, all their information. And I'll add to that, if there is an expense throughout the month, and a lot of these properties are being purchased brand new and they're under warranty, so there really shouldn't be any. But let's say there's an expense, a copy of whatever invoice is paid is uploaded to they get copies of all that. So every month they'll get a monthly statement and a copy of the invoice, and they'll have a login to see that whenever they'd like. The tenants,
so at the end of the year, they can download whatever, give to their accountant, CPA. It's all right there, right at their fingertips.
Correct. And in addition to that, to kind of simplify it, so each month it's monthly sent to them. At the end of the year, my office will send them a PDF file with their year-to-end statement, along with a copy of their 1099 and everything for their accountant. They'll be able to submit to them with copies of invoices and breakdowns of everything. So that on a monthly basis, that's tallied, but at the end of the year, a kind of year-end breakdown of everything is sent to them as well. And then on the tenant side, they have a login. My theory on that too, when it comes to like payment and tenants paying, I give them as many options as possible to pay. So the easier it is for them to pay, the better. So they can log in and pay online, which most of them might, probably 75%, 74% do that, pay online. And that's either with their banking account or debit card. We also have a few tenants that will pay in cash. So they're given, if they want to, they're given a document that they can scan at Walmart, at CVS, or I think it's 7-Eleven are the three places they can go. They can scan that document with cash, and it goes directly in, I think for like a $3 fee, and it goes into their account and it's paid. They can mail it to my office. They can drop it off my office. I've got a UPS store, PO box that they can drop it off at up to like 7 o'clock in the evening and on the weekends. So I give them just as many options as possible to pay, along with having the online option, obviously, which is probably best and most often used. But it works out great. So those work orders too, you mentioned work orders, they can send it online. They can upload pictures of what the work order is potentially. And then one thing we do too when it comes to maintenance, you may have seen on my website, but a lot of like odds and ends types repairs, there's no need to send a handyman. A trip GFI, a trip breaker, there's just a lot of little things that the tenant handles that we would have a tenant do first before we send somebody. There's no point in sending a contractor out to do work for something simple. We can over the phone say, have you checked this? Have you checked that? And, move forward. Something simple would be, battery and a thermostat could go out or go dead. And my AC's not working. We'll check the battery, make sure it's good, put a new battery in, and you're fine. If you send an AC tech out to check that all out, there's gonna be costs associated with that. So we
and they're gonna probably try to sell you a new AC regardless.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So we try to troubleshoot any work order prior to sending someone if we can, because if it's something silly or easy to handle, you just handle it and back on the tenant. There's a list too, and I can send this to any potential purchase buyers or people interested in. The lease that I have puts a list of things that the tenants are responsible for. So odds and ends type stuff. One example, this might sound silly, but for a mailbox, for example, years and years ago, I kept getting mailboxes knocked down by the neighbor. And, it was probably the tenant backing into it and they wanted to send a contractor. So we put it in the lease, your mailbox is up to you. You want to get mail? It's up to you to handle. And that might sound simple, but through time that adds up and expenses. So anything we can do to have the tenant handle it, we do.
Yeah. And I've done the same thing with screen lanais in the past. I've had rentals where the screens, their dogs are eating the screens and they're calling me and I'm like, it's your dog running through the screen, not me.
Exactly. Yeah. And we so on the lease too, we have a part that says if it's below $100, it's your expense that you to cover. Obviously, we don't want them changing an outlet out in the wall and get electrocuted, but the odds and ends, minor repairs that they can definitely handle, we have them handle it. Another part of the tenant process that we do that's helped is we send them a copy of the lease prior to them signing and moving in, so they can review it. So if they say that this lease, which gives them a lot of responsibility to handle odds and ends of the property, they say, I'm a tenant, I don't want to do anything, that's why I'm renting. I don't want them as a tenant. Like, if you're not willing to sign my lease, then move on. We'll find there's enough demand out there. We'll find someone else. I want someone who takes some ownership of the property and wants to take care of it. That's a good tenant. But if they're from the get-go saying, I don't touch anything, I don't fix nothing, I'm like, well, then go look somewhere else because we don't want you. So, which it was helped out. It's worked really good. So.
Exactly. Hey, last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Some of the homes that we sell are well and septic, some are water and sewer, some are city water and septic. Talk to me about like the process when somebody moves in, about, if they've got a softener, the conversations you have with them about maintaining, salt levels and like Ridex for their septic systems, because I know it's a question that comes up for me a lot. What's your process with that?
Good question. So my lease has a specific document for both septic tanks with like a what to do and how to maintain them, along with the document for the well equipment. Because those two things, if they're maintained, it will be in good shape. With time, you're going to have some expenses with them. That's just inevitable with owning it. But if they maintain it properly, so it works out really good. So we have a document indicating to both. We also at the move-in show them how to do it. I mean, a lot of it's just really simple. You clean a tank out, you keep the salt levels high, and you maintain the system. And when it comes to the septic side of it, if there is a septic system, we're very specific in the document of what can and can't go down the line, and in much detail. And if there is an issue and we send the septic company out and they say, hey, there's a clog or it's not draining because of this was put down the line that shouldn't have been, it's in the lease. So we charge them back, the tenant back on, hey, here's the evidence of it. We might send them a picture, which probably sounds gross, but we got kind of here's the evidence of it. That was there, it shouldn't have been. That's up to you to handle. It was in your lease and you pay for it. So we're upfront about everything, where this is what our expectations are. This is how you maintain it. Here's some documents with great detail. And on our website, we have a video for both from a septic company that I've used for years and a well equipment company. The videos are several minutes long, explaining how to maintain it. So in addition to signing a document, we have them view those videos. This is what you do. And it's not difficult as long as you follow the instructions.
Sure.
So, but we give them they have to watch the videos and sign off that they'll do it. So they're held liable for it, responsible for it. So, and it's helped. We keep costs down. It's been great.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Mike, I want to thank you for taking, half an hour out of your day here to kind of explain your process. How does somebody get a hold of you, Mike, if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, Mike. So my phone, again, my personal cell is 239-560-6164. And then my email address is mike@lionsrealestateinc.com, and that's Lions with a Y. And looking forward to work with anyone that has questions, and even if they just have questions about whether or not they want to pull the trigger on buying a property. I know property management has a lot to do with it after the fact, after they buy it. So if they have questions, reach out. I'm willing anytime to talk to anybody about it. So.
Very good. And once again, this is Reed with Estero Developments. My cell is 239-229-5948. And you can reach me at reed@estero-developments.com. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And once again, thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
You too.